That night is burned into my mind as if it were etched there with steel. The air in our living room felt dense, almost suffocating. Heavy with tension, neither of us dared to speak aloud. My wife looked straight at me, her gaze sharp and unblinking, and said something I never imagined would come from her mouth. "Go home if you're jealous." She didn't yell. She didn't slam anything. She delivered the words calmly, as if stating an obvious truth, as if she were offering advice rather than issuing a challenge. I stood there frozen. Jealous of what? My thoughts spiraled instantly. The messages I caught glimpses of, the private smiles she shared with people I didn't recognize, the way she carried herself lately, as though she belonged somewhere else entirely. But what cut deepest wasn't suspicion. It was the confidence behind her words. No anger, no guilt, just quiet defiance. So I did exactly what she said. I went home. I didn't storm out. I didn't sulk or plan some childish retaliation. I simply walked out the door. It was the calmest decision I'd ever made, and yet it felt like the loudest statement of my life. Every step away from that house, from her, felt like trudging through wet cement. My chest pounded with fear, disbelief, and restrained anger, each heartbeat echoing heavier than the last. When I finally reached my apartment, the silence hit me hard. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing, letting the quiet press down on me. That's when the weight of it all settled in. She had told me to leave, and I had done it without resistance. I had followed her words. Still, every instinct urged me to turn back, to knock on that door and demand answers. But I didn't. Something deep inside whispered that walking away was exactly what I needed to do, even if I didn't yet understand why. I replayed the moment again and again. How could she look at me like that and not flinch? How could she dismiss my feelings with such calm certainty? The more I thought about it, the clearer something became, something I had been avoiding for months. Our marriage wasn't what I believed it was. It had become a performance. Smiles carefully placed. Small gestures masking a widening distance we both pretended not to see. By the time midnight arrived, my phone started buzzing. I ignored it. Another buzz. Ignored again. Then a message appeared. "Are you home?" My fingers hovered over the screen, itching to respond. But I stopped myself. Replying would mean giving ground again, and I wasn't ready to do that. Maybe not tonight. Maybe not ever. I stared at the glowing screen, thinking of all the times I'd swallowed my pride, overlooked warning signs, convinced myself everything was fine. This moment felt different, like the balance had finally shifted. Hours passed without sleep. I considered leaving for good, starting over somewhere unfamiliar, where no one knew my name or our story. Yet part of me stayed tethered, by shared memories, by history, by the hope that maybe she hadn't meant what she said. Maybe it was frustration. Maybe a test. Maybe she'd regret it. Then, just before dawn, the door creaked open. I looked up. She stood in the hallway, hesitant. For a brief second, her eyes softened, and I almost believed reconciliation was possible. But just as quickly, her expression hardened back into that familiar calm resistance. "You left," she said, not as a question but a statement. I didn't answer. I stayed seated, my thoughts racing. I had left because she dared me to, and now she stood there expecting what? Exactly? Anger? Forgiveness? That's when it hit me. She had no idea what she had set in motion. She thought she had issued a command, not realizing she had triggered something I'd ignored for far too long. The night dragged on. She talked. I barely listened. Every word only highlighted the distance between us. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was observing, calculating, noticing things I had overlooked for years. The way she avoided eye contact. The pauses before certain answers. The subtle defensiveness woven into her tone. Signs that our life together had shifted quietly, unnoticed, until it was impossible to ignore. Then came the unexpected part. She smiled. Not warmly, not lovingly. It was a smile of curiosity, of amusement, like she was playing a game I didn't know the rules to, and in that moment, I understood something painful but undeniable. My leaving hadn't hurt her. It surprised her, maybe unsettled her, but it wasn't punishment. It was revelation. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt clear, the kind of clarity that only comes when you step outside the chaos and finally see things as they are. And the truth was simple. This was never about jealousy, never about control. It was about respect, about honesty, about boundaries that had been crossed so often they no longer existed. I stayed that night. I didn't sleep. I watched. I reflected. And in that quiet reflection, I made a promise to myself. I would no longer allow someone else's impulses to dictate my peace. I would stop ignoring the quiet betrayals, the subtle indifference, the offhand words that carried more weight than any shouted argument ever could. That night I left, and when I returned, I did so with a new understanding, one that would change everything.